IVM.
The Kinetic Living Podcast. What do you think about a 7 a.m. workout or a 9 p.m. workout? Both sound too hectic? Well, the Kinetic Living Podcast with Coach Urmi is a show about keeping fit, both physically and mentally, and why a fitness regime can turn things around for you. Urmi talks to some interesting people, and a couple of people we shouldn't have called, who share experiences from their fitness journey. So gear up. You're about to embark on a journey to achieve a kinetic life, but not the scooter. Episodes out every Wednesday. Urmi. Coach Urmi is not available between Tuesday and Sunday. Episodes available at the IVM website, app, or wherever the hell you get your podcast from. Kripaya dhyan dijiye. The language used on the podcast may not be fit for consumption. We warn you, tread carefully. But listen, yaar. Don't be so conservative.
You're listening to Cyrus Says.
All right, we're going to meet a man called Devang Pathak who runs comedy in India. He charges 250 rupees for a review, a good one, and 500 rupees for a bad one, because apparently that's what sells. Devang Pathak, Cyrus Says.
Why follow your auntie's advice when you can follow Cyrus Says on Facebook and Twitter to stay updated about the latest shows?
All right, here on Cyrus Says, as the year has ended, waited for months for it to end, finally ended, and now we're in the new year, 2000 something or the other, I can't remember. But the point is, I want to be more positive. That's what I've thought about. Forget resolution, it's not a resolution, but positivity is important. Everyone should have a pet project and do it in a positive way. Mine is to understand the metro. You see, metro work is going on and it will go on for many years. For example, outside the Oval, they did one side and they told me that 2-3 hafte ke liye, uske baad sab theek ho jayega. Don't worry about not parking and all. So that was great. 3 weeks became 8 weeks. And then they finished that and did the other side. So you still could move the car. Again, 3 weeks became 8 weeks. So that was 4 months of my life gone, ruined completely. So I want to be positive about all this. I want to understand the metro for others. So I'm going to study it and then I'm going to interpret it. So whatever the engineer says or whatever the cop says, I'm going to interpret it correctly and give it to you. And that you can share that with me and I can share that with you and we'll understand our city better. Because there's wheels within wheels. Once we understand how that operates, we'll all be fine. So understanding the metro is my pet project. And that is my gift to you. This 2000 and calendar here somewhere, whatever it is. It's called Cyrus Says.
And that's what Cyrus says.
Okay, my guest in the new year. First, let me wish you Happy New Year. What a fucking waste of time that is, no?
Yeah.
Why do people even do that? Let's just say happy. Let's not even, as a mark of disrespect, let's not say the whole 3 words.
Sure.
Happy.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Even in Hindi, it's shorter. Sal Mubarak. Not really, but it's 3 syllables. Devang can introduce you. So let me just get a word in. Devang Pathak. Is it Pathak or Fatak?
Pathak.
Because Pathak is north and Fatak is south, Maharashtra. I want to make that clear that I know my country. Devang, of course, is 12 people that I know already, so you're 13. Lucky number for some. You're a freelance writer and journalist, and you've written for publications like The Hindu. I've also written for The Hindu. I've been featured in the front page of The Hindu once for a case in Chennai. BuzzFeed India, never written for BuzzFeed. What do they do exactly? You're talking to an internet savvy man, so go ahead.
They write about the internet culture.
You're unprepared for that. I accept that. This is a difficult question. Who asks? I mean, even the Times of India, nobody says, what do you do? Nobody knows. Array as in Array.
Yes.
Okay. And they're all TV18 boys, right, who started Array, as far as I remember?
Yeah, I wouldn't know that. I just interact with the editors.
Okay. I won't name names because that's not correct. Quartz?
Quartz is an international publication with Atlantic.
Right. Okay. Atlantic was an ocean. Quartz was a watch. That's my generation. Your generation is different. But Devang, you also, people don't know this, you were part of Shits and Giggles, which is a comedy troupe. Troupe.
Yeah. So I was part of SNG Comedy as their social media manager.
Yeah. SNP is different. That's a wing of any MNC which you don't want to get associated with. This is SNG, yeah?
Yes.
Go on.
So SNG Comedy, I joined them in 2014. I used to initially produce their shows, the backstage, and helping them book ads for one of their plays and the shows. And then I've slowly moved into as their social media manager. In 2016, they started their video podcast, The Big Question. I produced the first half of, I think, around 24 episodes.
Wow. But my point was none of that boring crap. No. My point was, did we do anything together? Because I've a couple of times for MTV done SN Shits and Giggle impromptu stuff that we did. So were you part of that troupe that I was with once? Or twice, actually, on 2 occasions?
This is actually not the first time we've met.
What are you saying?
In 2014, you had hosted the MTV Curious Minds event, and I was your squire then for the day.
Yeah! God, that was ridiculous. That was funny. Yeah.
There was Sashi Tharoor was there for some reason. And I was there running behind you with a Subway sandwich. Reminding you to eat.
Superb. God, I remember. I'll tell you where. Somewhere in Parel only.
It was, I think, it's beside Phoenix.
Correct.
It's a
in
fancy
Parel. Yes.
restaurant,
I remember I couldn't get a cab to go home also. At about odd time, like 6 when we finished. Neither there. But in those days, Parel was you could actually reach home from Parel.
Yes.
Now it's like anybody's guess. It's no man's land. If you get in, you get in. I say bye to my family and wish for the best. Let's talk about you. Devang, so right now, we'll go to the beginning, but right now you are where? You're with The Big Question.
I am the editor and founder of a publication called WasThatFunny.in, which writes about Indian stand-up comedy.
So you're the critique?
Yes.
Okay. So why go from performer to critique?
I was never a performer. So I was around performers. I have never performed stand-up even as an open micer. So I have just been around stand-up comedians, learning by just observing them or, the conversation, the things they suggest. You should watch this special. You should watch this show. And the more I understood the craft, the more I fell in love with it. The more I fell in love with the act of just saying something, whatever you feel, which in a country like ours.
Which is what Donald Trump does as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Would he be in your top 5? 10?
No? Yeah, maybe.
Top 10, but not in English. Okay, fair enough. Let's get back to critiquing some of the big names today that are around. Right. Since this is what you do, give me 2 good points and 2 bad points. Okay, I'll name the comedian. Abbas Memon, who's a producer. Moment.
I don't think that would be fair because I've never seen Abbas perform. So
I think that's always the best way to critique someone. Yeah. Names. Veer Das.
Veer Das, 2 good points. Great observational skills, great storytelling skills. I wouldn't say bad, but
I'll say bad points.
I sometimes feel he limits himself. Though I should say I haven't watched his latest special.
Is that because of the height thing? No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Limits himself in the sense because he was one of the pioneers for the modern stand-up, which we
apparently, according to him, he invented stand-up comedy. Isn't that correct? If you check Wikipedia, he started the whole movement. Yeah, and then 1 decade later, Lenny Bruce and all came along. Okay, let's go to other names. Ashish Shakya, who used to write with us.
Ashish Shakya, again, I haven't seen him perform that much.
Because of lighting. I've been telling him, catch the light or we don't get you. Go on.
I haven't seen him perform that much, but I do find, I think his writing style, especially his blog posts, comes out fantastic.
I think he's the best writer.
Yes.
Arguably the best writer in the business. Because there are only 9 people in the business, but still, something. Names, Abbas. Naveen Narona.
Naveen Arona actually reviewed his show as well, so you can read the review.
So then you can't lie, because we can always play it. I can read it out later and we can actually play it.
So I'm not lying. I think Naveen he is bold. He's one of the boldest comedians I've seen on stage. Yeah. He just says it, but he says it in such an endearing way that no one can take offense.
You want to hug him.
And I like that, but other than that, there wasn't much critique. It's just that structure was a bit loose, at least because I had seen a trial.
Also, he's a fatso, and that can be boring after some time. I'm just being mean. Yeah, female comics. Who, in fact, there's a lot of sexism apparently in the industry. So whenever we have the ladies over, they always bring that up for some reason. Primarily because I don't let them talk. But is that sexist to do that? Who would be the top 3 female comics? Is that a fair question? Are there 3 comics? Okay, 2.
There are, I should clarify, there are lots of female comedians, and I personally would say in the past 6 months, the most satisfaction I've got is by going through...
Be careful. Me too.
By going to ladies' open mics, where there are around 10, 12 female comedians performing. I usually have a great time when I'm on...
And when you see a set, what is the climax? I'm sorry, I seem to have again offended you. Name top 3.
Again, I wouldn't be comfortable with doing top 3. My publication doesn't do top 3.
Let's not do top 3 because again, that's an inane question because what does that mean?
Yeah.
Name ones who have impressed you and tell us a bit about their craft.
Sonali Thakkar.
Yes, we've had her on, yes.
Sonali Thakkar is really great in forming personal storytelling, but she also does it in a very distant way. Like she'll tell you something which might be based on a fact about like her parents, her family, and then she takes it away from you.
She starts personal and becomes apersonal.
Yes.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Next?
Next, I would say Aishwarya Mohan Raj.
We've had her as well. We've not had her. And when I say had her, let me again clarify.
Had her on the show.
On the show, yes, on the show. Please. For God's sake, you comic geniuses really drive me mad. Yeah.
I think she's one of, again, she is, I mean, just watching her perform is, it's nerve-wracking because she goes for very, like, nervous topics. Like, they make you as an audience
awkward
nervous.
Topics.
Yeah, she goes for awkward
Give
topics.
me an example, please. No, like sex, for example, would have been, but now it's overdone.
Right.
But so they'll think of incest, for example, would be awkward.
Right. No, in the sense, she sometimes talks about violence.
Anti-cow would be awkward.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm just asking.
Anti-cow is very awkward, but when it comes to her, she sometimes takes it to topics like violence, which make the audience uncomfortable because you're like, okay, there's lots of tension. You like, how are you going to break?
Or is the audience so sexist they don't want a woman talking about violence? That's a man's thing, yaar. I'm just asking. By the way, I just want to ask you: is it more difficult dealing with anti-cow or cow anti? Sorry, back to you. Take your time. You've got all these big names to talk about. Let's go back. Who else?
Who else?
Is there a?
I think.
Sorry, interrupt you. Is there a? You feel that? Okay, now this is again difficult question to ask someone, but since this is really your business now, do you think the female comic is growing faster than the male comic in a sense? Because suddenly in the last 2 years, there are more of them around. There's louder voices. They're getting more publicity.
Right.
And there seems to be more women interested in the business than ever before.
Right.
I'm not saying the men will continue to be there and continue to grow as well.
Right.
But the growth in the women's side is a little faster.
Yes, I think, and I think it also comes as a culture of watching more women, like Aditi Mittal, for example, having her own Netflix special. So just like those things have an impact overall in.
Is Aditi the biggest name in female comedy? And I include Mayawati roughly in that as well because I enjoy her comedy.
I think Aditi, yes, is the most well-known comic, I would say. But
I like the way you did that. You just didn't want to give her the title, did you? You took 5 minutes.
No, and I'll explain why. Because as part of the reason why I had to start Was That Funny was because I would see mainstream media only covering stand-up comedy when there was a controversy. Like there's a sexism controversy, so they're like, oh, this
and the same three people are now the badge of sexism.
Yeah, and so they would always try to like somehow make it as if Aditi is the only one who has to answer for the scene and be there, which is not true. We've had female comedians for a very long time. There has been Niti Palta. There have been.
What about like in Rambo Circus and all? When I was growing up, there was this girl with the beard. That's not exactly the same experience, but yeah, they've been around. And Bharati in all the Hindi improv things.
Right. So if I were to talk about even English stand-up comedy, there have been female comedians for a long time. One of the most well-known comedians is Jia Sethi, who herself has started Spaces in Mumbai, and she has the event.
Jia is Naveen's best friend, the same one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. They have the same gags also. So Jia is nicer to look at, so it's working better on her stand-up. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, so she herself, she started this show, I think around 2 years back, called Femapalooza, which is female comedians performing for a female-only audience. So if you have something that
I think it makes sense. You have a urinal only for one gender. Why can't you have a performance only for one gender? With the same urinal in the middle of the performance. I think it makes a lot of sense as far as I'm concerned. I do so many shows I have done where they're only men. I mean, corporate shows.
Right.
So they're dealer conferences in Lucknow. But they just, they're suddenly over 400 men and you wonder what happened to your life. And after 4 drinks, they're all saying the same thing to you. Fuck off, benchard! Fuck off! But for me, that's a tribute.
I mean,
really.
Corporate shows are a separate...
No, just people in Lucknow using the F word in English. That's all.
Corporate shows are an entire genre which I don't think many comedians do. Like the stories they say.
They shouldn't because I've been at Laughter. What's it called in Parel where you can't park?
Canvas Laughter.
Canvas Laughter thing, and the audience is just too nice. And I was watching and laughing at everything, and I'm like, these guys will be exposed to the real world. Where they'll start throwing things at you and say, "Bring Malaika! We don't want your truth." Because that's the real world. Yeah. Everybody's laughing. You say, "Hello, guys." That's good. It's just, I don't have a joke anyway.
I actually have an interesting story about that. So in 2016, when I was still with SNG Comedy,
what were you doing in SNG if you weren't performing?
As I said, I was their social media manager. So whatever shows, I had to promote shows. I had to promote videos. So you were literally
the manager?
Yeah.
Okay.
During that time, there was a very famous comedian who, there was a big event happening called YouTube Fan Fest. And this comedian was just talking to other comics and he was talking about this.
From a foreign comedian?
No. Just an Indian comedian.
Anglo-Indian or Indian?
Indian.
Bandra or Lokalwala?
No, I don't.
South Bombay. We don't have any comedians. We have accountants. Oh.
So he was just talking about the fact that it's now reached as a culture where before he can say a joke, the audience is already clapping.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because he cannot do new material. Because no matter what he says, if he says hi, there is laughter.
So they've come to perform, not to listen.
Yeah.
And their performing is we'll just keep clapping.
Yeah, they perform with, that's the thing now, they perform with selfies, they perform with videos of standing ovations.
Yeah.
So that is another reason why people often ask me why critique stand-up comedy. I say it's important to critique stand-up comedy because we're slowly shifting into a culture. To give you a more famous, prominent example, like Bollywood. Like after a point, if you're famous, that does it. Like, it doesn't matter how talented you are in every film that you're doing. Like, after you reach a certain level
if
of
you can
fame,
play the same character in every film for 400 years, you'll be successful.
Yes.
As many of the actors have found out.
Yeah.
But, I was, to come back to markets, so I remember at the airport I was telling this joke about A.R. Rahman performing. Now A.R. Rahman actually is, he was very introverted personality.
Yes.
But over the years, he's become a little more, on stage he changes. And he started now moving the mic to the audience and doing all the old rock stuff.
Right.
And unfortunately has a bit of a knee problem. Actual injury. So I was doing a physical, slightly mean version of that. He's a lovely guy. Yeah, I love you. But, I thought, and all these guys in the airport were laughing and were having a great time. Went back home and did the same routine for my wife. She was like, what's funny about that? You're just being mean because he's successful and you're jealous. I was like, he's A.R. Rahman. What am I jealous of? Okay, he's funnier than me, granted. But other than that, really, come on. I'm just saying, so markets define everything, right?
Yeah. And that is also, again, as a cultural thing. Like, things change in terms of what was funny before and what is funny now. And that has affected even how I...
Like, when the Congress is in power, BJP is funny. When the BJP is in power, Congress is funny. Isn't that the way?
Yes.
Yeah, just checking. Yeah. Listen, before we take a break, I want to ask you a question, because when we come back, we will talk about you. We haven't spoken about you at all.
Okay.
We're talking about general observations of yours, and you've lost all your friends in the comedy industry because you've insulted everyone.
Yes.
A for Aditi, all the way down to Z for Shakya with a Z. But he's from UP, so he said you can spell it Shakya. Although... apparently, the great philosopher himself came from the Shakya clan, but I won't get into that because I'll get trouble for all of us, especially the Devang Pathak who brought it up. Please take it up with him. Devang can be found on his website, which is...
wasthatfunny.in.
There you go. Was that funny? That is the question you will be asked a lot. Yeah. So before we take a break, which is the funniest joke you've ever heard? Because how dare people ask me this all the time? I don't know what to say. Hey, can you tell me the funniest joke? What does that mean? Can you... would you be able to answer this question?
Okay. Since you've asked me what's the funniest joke, you didn't ask me specific to stand-up.
Yeah.
I think one of the funniest things I've ever seen has been in Hindi cinema in Jaane Bhi Do Yaaro. For me...
Are you going to enact the whole scene?
No. I'm just going to tell you the one line because it's...
Satisha.
No, it's in the middle of the play when Naseeruddin Shah comes in and he says... he asks him, what are you doing? And he says... द्रौपदी जैसी सती नारी को देख के मैंने चीर हरण का आइडिया ड्रॉप कर दिया. And just the change of it, like it goes from, like a ancient play and suddenly drop kar diya.
Yeah.
It just...
The mythology just makes no sense to me.
Yes.
The characters have to go. That's pretty good. Where did that come from? Now you have no friends. Do you know how many people we've insulted and sort of taken on some big perimeters here? You have to be very careful. We'll take a break while we get some security in place and then we come back. Devang Pathak is here. We're going to learn about his life. Why he's specifically in this small world of comedy decided to become like a voice that critiques or sort of guides comedians when we come back.
You say jogging, and I'm telling you a story about a man who dated 3 sisters. You say boss, Kurla, and it's about a guy who went out to a party where they were selling beef. This is Anand Sivkumaran, aka The Croc. My show, The Croc's Tales. You give me a word, I'll tell you a story. Words aapke, kahani aapke liye. Do tune in on Monday and Thursday on the IVM website, app, and anywhere you get your podcast from.
We're with Devang Pathak here on a show called, what is the show called? Cyrus Says. What we're going to do now is get to the idea. Look, growing up, these are professions which no one would have thought of in their lives.
Right.
Firstly, comedian is tough.
Yes.
Stand-up comedian is even tougher. But sort of guiding light for stand-up comedian or a person who's throwing a torchlight on and critiquing both positively and sometimes negatively the entire process, that is unheard of. And if at 16 you told your dad, I'll be a critique for the small business of 8 English-speaking comedians in Bandra, I mean, he would have said, that's the best idea I've ever heard. So go on, tell us a little bit about your background, how you landed up doing this.
So it's been kind of absurd because I actually graduated as a management student. After that, I took some break because I wanted to figure out writing as fiction, non-fiction, or as a journalist. I somehow landed up at MTV working on a research project. And then from there, one of the members of SNG Comedy was working there at the time, Neville Shah. So he asked me...
Half Parsi, half Gujarati, the government's dream.
So he asked me if I would... like to, help out with SNG Comedy. They were still figuring what they wanted to do, and I got involved, and that's when I first saw stand-up,
So help out as in when they performed, what would you do initially, I'm saying?
I would just be there. I'm making social media posts, like taking a photo, backstage.
So you weren't telling them this joke didn't work and all?
No.
That came later.
I would never. I don't even do that to comedians physically now.
No, not in their face, but you in the print or in electronic print, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
So when that happened, I used to be a very shy kid, and I used to have many ideas about, you cannot talk about this.
Are you going to discuss masturbating now?
No.
So I'm a little worried where this conversation is going. Shy kid who doesn't want to talk about things. This is the typical story. Hours in the bathroom with no stomach upset. I've heard this many times.
Maybe on another episode. What I was saying.
Please save some time for masturbation. At the end, it's the only hobby worth doing. Yeah.
So what happened then was when I used to see that, it used to inspire me because, again, as a culture, I would see we used to hold back a lot of things. And I would see comedians not overtly doing things. They would be very smart.
You push the envelope, basically.
Yeah,
you
push
wanted
the
that
envelope
to happen.
and at the same time entertain
Is
the
it fair to
audience.
say that you wanted them to be your voice, in a sense? Because you have these thoughts, but you want somebody else to sort of push for you?
I would say kind of. Like the comedians which I personally like a lot, present are political comedians. And so when they kind of have, they critique it.
Kunal Kamra.
Yes.
Yeah. When he goes to jail, I'm telling you right now, you and I must visit him.
Yes.
Because I want to see if he's really funny.
Yeah.
And that'll be a test.
Yeah.
Kunal, 3 jokes from your dimly lit cell. Sir, no non-veg today. Sorry. Just a thought, yeah.
So, so that kind of started inspiring me. And it used to be not just about political comedy. Like, it used to be very simple things, like how parents are with their kids in this country.
Or with other people's kids.
Right.
I've seen the difference, yeah.
Right. So, making observations about that and then breaking that taboo. Like, it inspires a conversation somewhere. Maybe not directly, but somewhere it...
So you want depth in your comedy. I'm no friend of yours. Really? It's killing the market for people like me. We just get people to laugh and run away fast. It's like you pinch somebody's nipple and you...
the tagline of wasthatfunny.in is come, antagonize and run.
How do you spell come? I'm sorry,
C-O-M.
I forget now. I'm so old. Engineer's laughing for the first time today. We woke him up on that one. As long as we have a market, we have a joke. Remember that, bro? Yeah, good. All right, so you were with SNG?
Yeah, so, and then slowly I started writing, and then as I said, I used to observe mainstream media would only cover them, do profiles of them when their shows are coming, or if controversy, someone's Snapchat has come out, which is causing
or you insult the church or the temple or whatever.
Yeah. So I started seeing there was a lot of limited knowledge. Like, no one's talking about what stand-up comedy is. People are just like, comedy, we've always had comedians. They would make comparisons with the popular mainstream Hindi or local comedians and be like, they don't get in trouble. Why are you getting in trouble?
Johnny Lever, 3.5 hour show, not one F word.
Yes.
Oh, except Farooq Bhai, because when he tells a story about the laundry. Huh.
So there used to be many misconceptions. The other thing used to be, because all of them were online and they... As you asked, what's BuzzFeed India? There used to be many copycats of BuzzFeed India. Like, they would have clickbait. They would be like, this is the best thing you will see today.
And it's downloaded from somewhere else.
You just feature a comedian's work and you're like, this is the best comedy you'll see today. This is the best sketch. It used to be a stand-up, which is a guy with a mic speaking for 15 minutes would be called a sketch.
Is Papa CJ your top 5?
I cannot answer that. I plead the 5th.
Okay, just for the record, he's not a papa. I've worked with him. He's actually not a father at all. Okay, he lied about that. He's a CJ, but he's not a papa. Yeah.
So there used to be so I used to see like people don't know what is stand-up comedy. I used to interact with audiences as someone who's
like a reviewer.
No, as someone
like MARG Marg.
No. So as someone who used to handle social media, you would get comments and feedback and all, and you used to see lots of misconception about what stand-up or what telling a joke actually means in this country.
I don't understand. You're asking them how they enjoy the joke or understood the joke?
So say for example, if I posted a video of someone from SNG performing stand-up and someone's comment would be a critique or like, this was not funny as your last video. Well, the last video was a sketch which was written and, people performed it. This is someone on stage speaking.
But this is their gut feeling. It's not about the medium. They just didn't like it.
Yeah.
Why are you being so nice to SNG?
I'm not being...
It's not SMG now. He was great. 34 test centuries. But SNG, okay, I'm just kidding. Go on.
So,
So good to know. So you sort of understanding your own, honing your own craft in a way by getting to talk to the public.
So I realized this in 2015 that maybe not reviews, but there was somewhere need for someone
to educate them.
To educate
or
people.
Push them in the right direction.
Yeah, to push them
Kick
in the
them
right
in the ass, so to speak.
Yeah, so...
Pull their chuddies down. Pinch their bollocks. I don't know. I'm looking at the right phrase. It's got to be somewhat funny, right? Yeah. Put your finger up the anus. No. Don't do that. That's a different audience altogether. I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
So that is what my idea was. So yes, my reviews get the most attention, but there is also a section which tries to talk about the craft, tries to understand what is, say for example, improv. We recently started talking about improv. So what is improvised comedy? What are the most famous examples of it? Where can you watch it in the city and stuff like that?
I believe Dr. Kanis Surka is one of the practicing exponents. She used to or does work with us. I don't know. Some contractual obligations have not been honored. And she disappears. She's also split personality because we don't know who she is anymore. Is she Kanis? Is she Surka? Is she Surka first or Kanis first? Who knows? She's out there somewhere. Yeah. So improv, does that work? I've seen a couple of, without mentioning, I've seen some performances which have gone very flat in the sense that the audience after 10-15 minutes seems to be disconnected completely. And it's like a marriage where,
So what I have seen is when you have small games, when you have games like what would get you fired from a job?
I thought kabaddi. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so there are short improv games. They work very well with
where the audience is actually involved.
Yeah, because they have to give suggestions.
They have to keep talking.
Yeah. So those work very well.
Whereas when they have this longest sort of drama going on, where they themselves are off tangent, even though it's creative in many ways. The
audience cannot.
So how do you correct that? What do you do?
I mean, what do you do is, I think what Kanis has been
Change
doing...
the audience.
No, I think what Kanis has been doing has been right. She released one special early in the year, then she released another special called Improv All Stars, which was more friendly to the audience.
And keep in mind, these All Stars are not Amitabh Bachchan, Shah Rukh Khan, but they're known.
Yes, they are Adar Malik, Radhika Vaz, Danish Seth, and...
I know Danish. I know Radhika. I know Adar. He came on the show. I know all three. There's it. In your face, boy.
So comedians like those, so, helping them see experienced comedians and helping them understand slowly. I think that's how you get there.
There was the American guy also, Adam
Dow.
Dow, yeah. So is he still around?
I think he was one of the behind the
scenes. So how big is improv in America?
Improv is huge in America because to give
Donald Trump improvises, to give you an example.
Sure.
Yeah.
To give you examples, Steve Carell, Stephen Colbert are all from the most famous examples of Tina Fey, Amy
Steve
Poehler.
Carell, the actor?
Yes.
Oh.
He studied in a place called Second City in Chicago.
New Jersey. Oh, sorry. Okay. Go on.
So
I thought it was like 20 questions. I love answering. I'm an Indian. You're asking an Indian question, they always want to put their hand up. GK, yes, I know. Yeah.
So they all came up together, and there is actually a weekly show in New York which has been running for 20 years. One is a free show, one is a paid show.
Right.
It has performers like Amy Poehler and like the biggest names in comedy just come and just perform improv for you.
Still now.
Till now. It took 20 years. Like they have new people coming in, they alternate. But
so
that
why don't
show
the
goes
iconic
on.
Indian comedians like Javed Jaffrey, Raju Srivastav, Kapil Sharma, and even Johnny Lever, why don't they do that? A free show, say, at Laughter Canvas every Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
I mean,
why don't we do that?
I think that's
a great idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I'm going to put it forward. Who to talk to? Who's the head of comedy in India? INB? Who to talk to? Transport Minister? Nitin Gadkari? There's got to be someone. Come on, okay, you're the head of the Comedy Association. You give me pointers.
Head of the Comedy Association. Please don't call me that. I would be in further trouble with
because I got into comedy when nobody else was there. Yes. It was a safe place to be. Now we're stuck with so many people. I don't know. Where do I go now? The military, difficult place. So I was thinking, I'm very disciplined. So I thought soldier is good for me. But apparently the food is, there's not, it's all veg.
I mean, to be fair, you are one of the most senior comedians in this country. So you could put the idea.
Yeah, it wasn't Veer Das. It wasn't Lenny Bruce. It wasn't even Mangal Pandey. Well before them. Before horses were found. Horses were not endemic to India in any case. Iranians brought them in. We'll take them back now. Give me 2 horses, I'm leaving. Let's get back to your story, my friend.
Yes.
So you were with these guys as SNG.
Yes. And then when I took a break, Veer Das's special was coming out in April. And I just posted the review. And I said, okay, there's a website called Medium where anyone can start a publication. I did that. I did the review. It got a good response. I did another, and then slowly I thought, this
Did
is something
the
I
people
can
you
keep
review, do they call back? Are they? You get a little.
Okay, so some of them acknowledge the feedback. They're like, okay, I didn't entirely agree with it, but I get the point. Or some
Comedians aren't that funny, huh? Suddenly they're so serious. I didn't agree with it entirely. That's a bit stupid. Why don't they just say 2 thumbs ups and my middle finger? That would be funnier.
Yeah, and some do that. Some
they do that.
Some subtly do that. They give the cold shoulder.
Copy that from somebody. Damn it. No.
So yeah.
No, but I'm saying you know all these guys. Some of them, the younger generation, you know most of them.
Yeah.
The girls you mentioned, you know most of them. Veer Das, etc. So when you write about these guys, do they ever get irritated?
I mean,
with you personally, do they call you, talk to you, do they send you an email?
I don't know most.
Okay,
I don't know most comedians personally, but I do know some of them personally, and some of them will reach out. They will say either they agree with it or they disagree with it. I take it as
they reach out to their
feedback.
3 fans and get to you. What?
Oh, there are no. Oh, comedians don't have 3 fans. They have lots of fans.
So the fans attack you? Who attacks you?
I mean, they don't attack me. I mean, it's not as bad. Like I used to think it's bad. Then
If they praise you, let's go with the positives.
Yes.
If you praise them and they like it, how do they get to you?
They just reply through Twitter on.
But dear Devang, thank you so much for absolute truth. You're like the Bible of comedy. Every word you said was perfectly correct. And God bless you, and may you have many children, and may you have the longest schlong the world has ever seen. I don't know, what would they say to impress you?
I wish they used to say that.
Is it true?
I wish they say that, but I mean, it's still nice. Like,
but do you get
acknowledge.
pressurized? Do you get pressurized at all?
No, I don't. I mean, there is one thing which I've always been clear with, and that also is kind of a drawback for Was That Funny. I have a strict no advertorial policy. For example, if you tell me tomorrow I'm doing a special which comes out, so do an interview with me. I'm not going to do that to improve.
Is there a mafia called OML or something like that who comes and calls you and says, be careful?
I don't know. It might change. No, that never happens with me.
There's commerce involved, right? I'm just thinking.
There's commerce involved.
People, it's their bread and butter, and they go up and down. Since you seem to be the voice now, there's a lot
okay.
I know you don't want that position, but what to do now? It seems to be on your shoulders. So what are you going to do?
I don't think of it that way. Like every article I've ever posted on Was That Funny ends with, if you have any feedback, you can send it to us here. I'm always open for yours. I have learned a lot from my audiences. I've learned a lot from comedians.
But Devang, is it fair to say that sometimes what you're saying is reflecting what the audience is saying? Because you seem to want to talk to them and get a crossover feedback and all, especially for live acts.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, yes.
So then it's a Janta's fault. You don't have to get blamed also.
I don't mind that blame.
What is the most vicious thing you've said? As anyone, give me one story and I'll get off this whole topic and we'll move on. I've got things to discuss here in very little time. Don't take the name of the comedian, but what was the thing that you said that upset somebody, where they called you up or the fan threatened you or the mother called and said, I'll chappal se marunga and all that?
I mean, no one has called me that, but one of the first overtly negative review.
Kunal Vijayakar. That guy's got a bad temper. Did he insult you? Tell me, go on.
Sorry, Kunal, I've never seen that. I can't comment.
He can't stand. Forget stand up. Yeah. Huh?
So, one of the first overtly negative reviews I gave, I just commented saying maybe this special was just made to indulge the fans. Like this was just done for strictly as fan service.
So Netflix. Put it together. Who's on Netflix? Just 2 or 3 films.
I would just like to clarify, there are specials also on Amazon Prime Video.
I don't have the subscription. It's too expensive. I can't take both. Can't do that.
So I'm not going to name it, but yeah, I had just said that.
What is the reaction?
I mean, the reaction for some part of the audience was, yes, we agree with you and all of that, but I knew the comedian who it was about, he didn't like it. So.
But did he get back to you?
I mean, he got back to me sarcastically.
Was it a horse's head in your bed when you woke up in the morning?
I mean, I think I'm heading there, but it's not come yet.
Bastard comedians. Least funny people I've ever met. They're also fucking serious. What's wrong with them? What happened to the whole idea of being a failure and then getting into comedy?
I mean,
too many successful people in comedy. I'm an MBA. I'm a medical degree. I was a MNC manager in America. Oh, fuck you. Why are you in comedy? You should have failed 9 standard. It's very sad.
To be fair, I think comedians and this I'm going to say it as a blanket statement, most comedians are liberal, open-minded people.
But still truths.
I'm just not saying that. But are liberal, open-minded people. And
on a mic. But when their children want to marry outside the community, it's not funny. Sorry. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, it's such a young business. They don't have children. Do they have children? Do comedians sleep with each other? And is the comedy funnier then?
Again, I don't run the gossip website, so I don't know.
Right. All right. Okay, I think I've asked you too many mean questions. Let's move on to your life again. So the whole divide now in comedy, which people talk about, is that we've got this one class divide almost, if I dare say it, which is the English comedy is for the elite and, who are exposed to certain things. And so we can talk about sex and incest and what have you. And then the Hindi comedy, which is a slightly more lowbrow. This is just a general observation and stays in the same parameters and doesn't grow in terms of subject. Is that fair?
I think that's false because I can give you to give
आप
an example.
जवाब हिंदी में दीजिए, please.
To give an example.
You fraud.
Yeah.
You English-speaking Anglophilic fuckhead. Sorry, go on.
I just want to. My Hindi teacher was very impressed with me in school. I don't
What
want
are
to
you
disappoint
saying?
him now by messing it up.
So forgetting it after 10 years of stand-up. Yeah.
So to give an example, Abhishek Upmanyu. He as a comedian, he talks about similar material which English comedians talk about. He has a similar way of thinking which English comedians have.
And very sharp-witted and satirical.
Yes.
Yeah. So what happens to AIB? You have the answers to all this as well. Because the business, you're also involved in the business. What happens to them?
I'm involved in the business in the sense of, yes, I have written about the whatever happened in October, and I don't know honestly what happens to AIB. But
what about Utsav, the guy who's actually in the middle of that storm with the dick pics and all that? Does he get a second chance, or that's it?
I think that's a conversation.
Does he do his MBA now? What is his next option?
I think that's a larger conversation which isn't
Outside?
just limited to stand-up. It's a conversation which everyone needs to have.
The fifth,
yeah.
But what do you think?
I don't have any.
You're so scared, huh, Baba?
I'm not even. Okay, I'm not scared.
You're not even a comedian. You're scared. I can understand we're scared.
No. I'm saying I'm not scared to talk about this. I'm saying this is a larger conversation which people need to have and which has to come in the cultural movement.
Is there a union? Is there a?
It's not official yet, but I've heard comedians are forming their own internal complaints committee. They're holding workshops to talk about these issues because stand-up has been very informal.
And because in our marginalized communities, the most marginalized people are comedians. And we must take a step back and look at it from a societal perspective and understand the pain they're going through, the angst of being a comedian, of your joke falling flat and being left out there alone with just one dick pic doing the rounds. So, I understand that and where they're coming from. And I think we as a collective should do something about it. Forget the tiger. Forget the whale. Forget the tribals. Comedians. Comedians is the answer. I'm sorry, please, Devang, if you disagree, put your hand up and scratch your ear at any point. Have things changed after the Me Too movement? Have things got better? Or is that's a wrong phrase? Wrong phrase. Are men and women aligned better in this business?
I think that's something for the long term that is going to take time because what a visible change which I think the scene needs to have is they cannot go back to doing comedy that they have been doing a certain way before. Like with a lot of, to give you an example, as Was That Funny, we had attempted a survey last year, anonymous survey of only female comedians, talk about what they think of comedy as, like, what do they think? Do they think of it as a safe space? The answers I got were really, they were really shocking. Like, they would talk about how male comedians would say something and try to treat it as a joke when it wasn't a joke to the female comedians who were at the receiving end of it. They cannot bring that up because then it becomes the cultural pressure.
But
You're
the
not
same thing
funny.
happens when you're with an audience and you make a joke about accountants and the accountants, the audience don't like it. So, where do you draw the line then? Again, we're losing it. So there's just like a strict perimeter where you do your comedy?
No. So
you can't do a sexist joke. You can't make a joke about sex. You can't make a joke about women in general. You can't make a joke about a particular woman.
No. So
I'm feeling pain here.
So to give it, they would say really crass things about their own colleagues. Like at the end of it, among comedians,
personal comments about people in the field.
and they would try to pass it on as jokes.
What if it's the truth? Does no one care about the truth? If somebody has hairy calves, they have hairy calves. Shouldn't someone point it out?
I think it was much worse than hairy calves. But
starts with hairy calves. Cow is a holy subject, so don't go further than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you have that conversation, when they had that free space of being anonymous and they were saying those things, I already knew there were certain things even I didn't know, and even male comedians.
I accept, Devang, what you're saying, and I like the way you're actually a very positive man and trying to find a middle ground and all that, which is good. No worry. I think that is the right way. But just for a second, we're thinking of comedy as separate from men in general. So I think for a second, the whole issue was about men, whether they are dentists or sailors or comedians or politicians or actors or architects or whatever. So I think the problem is more the men part of it than the men in comedy.
Right.
But are you trying to tell me that men in comedy have a major issue? Specifically, which is different from men in general?
I think, no. I think it's a larger, again, you were absolutely right. It's about
I'm
men
trying to save
you.
No, I'm kidding.
It's about men in general. The reason the spotlight is on stand-up comedy is because the conversation began with this industry, and there is also another aspect of it. There is, for example, there is another aspect which came out last month. There was an investigative story about Only Much Louder.
Yeah.
About their working culture.
Who's Only Much Louder? OML. Correct.
OML.
It's not the Beatles. It takes me time.
So who manage a lot of the comedians, who organize a lot of the
And they
events?
pay the men more than the women.
I think that, yes,
So that
there
it
was
starts from there.
an issue.
Because there's a
about
thinking that when you're paying me more, the tennis federations have the same issue. You're thinking that the men deserve more.
Yes.
What else is there?
I mean, I think there was an example, public example of that. Malika Dua had spoken about how Zakir Khan was paid more for doing the same amount of work on a general entertainment channel show with her. So, but larger than that, that investigation was about the work culture and how there was prevalent, sexual
Biases,
harassment.
People using positions of power to tell jokes. No, worse than that.
Worse than that.
Yeah.
And now what happened was the comedians who were represented by that company fell silent. So up until then, they are like, yes, we need to hear, we need to talk about this, we need to have...
It's like when your friend is in the Me Too controversy, suddenly you're no longer about sexism and all that. Suddenly you have to keep quiet because it's the personal
Yes, and
thing.
it was very disheartening personally for me, because
Okay, let's name these guys and put them out of business. Give me the names.
Again, who is left? If you start doing the names, it's almost like the top tier of comedy.
Good, then I'll get work again. Come on, do me a favor, brother. Yeah.
So when that happened, there was a lot of conversation about why you're not speaking up. Up until then, you want to call out Utsav, you want to call out other comedians.
Why aren't you much louder? It's the point you're trying to make.
Exactly. Yeah. So when that happened, so that conversation is left incomplete, because it cannot just be about comedians. This is a company which is doing lots of work in it. You have to...
and probably the pioneering company, so they set the benchmark.
Yes, and the bizarre thing about that was the story ends acknowledging that the company itself is changing, that they are somewhere acknowledging their lapses, and that they're trying to change their work culture. But when there was no reaction which you would have desired.
Silence is always scary, right?
Yes, like there were some musicians who backed out of the event, the NH7 Weekender, which happened in Pune a few weeks back.
Zubin Mehta, for example, greatest conductor in the world, he said, I'm not doing this shit. Yeah.
But there was... I think one comedian, I think Radhika was acknowledged the story, and she said she's not entirely comfortable with what's all come out. But I think comedians did perform at the Weekender, and I'm not saying...
So Radhika was there. Take your time. Few seconds later, he goes on with his conversation.
Yes. So what I'm trying to say is, no one's asking them to boycott or to take action, but you have to acknowledge, because at the end of the day, modern Indian stand-up is based on telling the truth. This is something which is a truth which needs to be acknowledged, especially if you're going to have that conversation in your own industry first.
Yeah.
So because this is a part of your industry, this is something which happened to if not even one of the biggest firm in Indian stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
It's a story came out of that. You have to talk about that. So I find the conversation, like, it's happening. The conversation is going in the right place in some places, and somewhere it's silence and just, I don't think we should talk about it, and those sort of things. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I think we're running out of time. Very quickly, what next for you? Is this what you're going to do? Are you going to broaden yourself into starting your own comedy collective? And then promote only them and only women?
I am never going to do that. But as far as Was That Funny goes, yes. As a platform, we get contributors to write for us. I do plan to continue with it. One thing which I made clear is, if I don't make it dependent on like financials or this is something I can carry on with.
Speaking of which, how much would you charge for a good review?
I don't do paid reviews.
Okay, we'll take it offline. No Indian answers. It's wrong. If you're in India, you can't answer like that. The other thing is, was that funny? So that means you can never talk about something coming up. You can only talk about things that already happened. You realize you've limited yourself. You can never, ever talk about the event that's coming up in November because it wasn't wrong intense. You have to go, was that funny?
So people ask me, why did I choose that name?
Yeah.
When I used to
save time by saying that, yes.
When I used to hang out in green rooms.
What the hell were you doing? What a creepy thing. People are changing. You're like, hi. Why were you in the green room?
Green rooms behind stand-up shows where comedians are waiting for their turn to go on stage.
The waiting room.
Yes, okay. The waiting room.
Green room where you change.
If a comedian has performed for a new material for the first time, he comes back and sometimes asks for feedback. He asks, was that funny? Or he asks, funny tha kya? So that was one of my initial names that I thought, funny tha kya?
Was that funny?
And a comedian,
If nobody laughed for the entire set, he still says, was that funny?
I mean, that is another thing. Comedians sometimes give feedback.
You sometimes have a bad run, and it just audience doesn't take to you.
The audience doesn't take to you, but comedians amongst themselves will have the potential of spotting, okay, this has potential. Don't worry, maybe you can change this and you can tweak it. So that feedback. And another thing was a comedian I was interacting with, he once told me, forget offense, forget everything. The main question is, was it funny? That is the bottom line.
Was it funny? But you said, was that funny? Because they've come back from the thing, so they would say, was that funny? I'm sorry to keep picking hairs, and hair is not your thing either. Yeah. Sorry about that. Listen, Devang, you've been fantastic. Thanks for giving us your time. I'm not trying to belittle you in any way. I think what you're doing is fabulous because the whole idea is that this is a work in progress.
Yes.
This entire business.
Yes.
And in many ways, you guys, maybe 20 years, 30 years later, the perspective will be better and understand the role you played.
Yes.
Because while you have performers, you also have to have the other side. It comes together for a so-called industry to be born. So thank you very much. And please, if you ever mention any of my friends and family, just abuse the fuckers. All right, because they are full of shit, really.
Okay, I'll cite you, but I'll do that.
No, don't do that. I want to be the nice guy. Come on. All right, listen, we have a thing called the AMAs. I forget, age. This could be your next column. Age bhi ek cheez hai. You must do that for fading comedians. They won't punch the joke. Audience has to do that. You can remember the first half. Yeah, it's called AMAs.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another awesome week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure that you do. We're IVM Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So we did this last week and we had a pretty good response and we'd like to keep it going. So if you are listening to an IVM podcast, take a screenshot of that, put it on your Instagram story and tag us with it. And what we'll do is we'll repost it on our story so that people get a look at what you're listening to. And people who come onto our stories will get an idea of what kind of things people are listening to. Leave us a comment too, just don't tag us. Last week, we launched 2 new shows. We launched our first Marathi podcast. It's called Golgappa, hosted by a regular on our network, Trupti Khamkar. Actress Shivani Tangsale is the first guest of the show, and she talks about baking, her Everest climbing experience, and her love for theater. And we also launched the Filter Coffee podcast, hosted by Karthik Nagarajan. On the first episode, Karthik talks to film editor Nishant Radhakrishnan about focus group screenings, OTT platforms, and the future of the Indian film industry. On The Seen and the Unseen, in part 1 of a 2-part conversation, Amit Verma talks to historian and author Ramchandra Guha about Mahatma Gandhi's early years and his life in South Africa. On the Hindi podcast Cinemaya, writer-director Tanuja Chandra joins Swati Bakshi to discuss how she started her career with TV and the joys of making thrillers. On Paisa Vaisa, we have a 1-hour exclusive episode with Morgan Housel. He's a partner at the Collaborative Fund and a former columnist on Wall Street. He does a deep dive into the psychology of money. That's a really great episode. And with that, let's continue on with your shows.
If you have any questions for Cyrus, write to us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Or you can send an email to whatcyrussays@gmail.com.
All right, it's time for the AMAs, arguably the most interesting part of our show. A lot of sponsors have written back to us saying, can we have only AMA shows?
Yeah.
But I put my foot down because I said, we have to have some guests, we have to talk to people.
Yeah.
It's wrong. Society functions when you do everything, right? You can't you have to eat and then piss.
Yeah.
And occasionally more than that. I personally...
People just want the piss.
Yeah, well, I could also just do with the piss then, because now it takes a long time to do the other stuff.
Oh, really?
Is that what our shows come down to?
I don't know.
All right. Let's introduce our new debutant, young Mayank Agarwal. Similar. Opening batsman for us today, Ashish. Ashish, you've hardly been here for a month or 2.
Yeah, exactly.
And you wear an Italia shirt as a proud Indian. Tell us the story behind that.
No, it's just a sweatshirt for the...
So there are only 2 reasons Indians wear shirts. One is if it's free, and 2, if somebody gave it to them and they don't know how to give it back. So this story, is there a story behind the Italia shirt?
No, it's just the second point.
But you do have a lovely mustache, which people can't see, audio program and all that, so I could be making it up.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that?
No story, I just...
Ranveer Singh?
Yeah, people actually keep saying Ranveer Singh, but I was aiming for Dali.
But they saw you getting out of a rickshaw and they know you're not Ranveer Singh.
I was aiming for Salvador Dali, but they...
Wow! You're obviously in the wrong podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, we may have a chance of getting Ranveer Singh, but dead or alive, we'll never get Dali.
So it just kept growing and people just
By the way,
kept appreciating
now that you mention it, if there was a Dali to be reborn, would we call him New Dali?
Oh my God.
I'm sorry.
Are you regretting being here already, Ashish?
Ashish, very interesting that you actually come onto our show. I want to point out here, you're not here because nobody else was available. I want to just get that off my chest immediately. We had lots of options, and from Shashi Tharoor downwards. And we've decided that we could have even asked so many people. We could have asked your famous friend, A.K. Hangal.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
How dare you? Iconic figure who passed away many years ago. Not even funny. We apologize to all A.K. Hangal fans. I actually worked in a movie with him. Why are we freewheeling so much? It's called Jalwa. Should we talk about
You were in Jalwa, were you?
I was in Jalwa.
Okay, I remember watching Jalwa.
Should I do dialogues?
Sure.
I spent a lot of time with Archana Puran Singh and Nasiruddin Shah. He who was wanted by the Indian government. Not for Tridev, his worst performance, but for some rants on Twitter. Yeah, all right, let's get on to it. What's our first story for the day?
Okay, Shubham Chaudhary asks you, hi Cyrus, love listening to your podcast.
Say hi, Ashish.
Hi, how are you, Shubham?
Who is your favorite Beatle? Please don't say Pete Best. And what is your take on Paul is dead?
Okay, do you guys know the Paul is dead controversy? This will take 45 minutes.
I vaguely know that the rumor went around that the real Paul McCartney was killed by John Lennon. And
not killed by John Lennon, just he was killed. No, there are many different theories, but the point is basically they had lots of proof, or rather clues, on, there's like Abbey Road, for example, he's only one barefoot, and things like that. So, and if you play one record backwards, it says Paul is dead, Paul is dead, Paul is dead, things like that. So, Ashish, are you familiar with all these stupid conspiracies?
No, not.
Trust me, Paul is very much alive. I actually met him for exactly 3 seconds. I used to work for a music channel called Matav. And they sent me to a Hyde Park concert in 2005, 1 week before the tsunami.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. The one that happened all the way in India, Thailand, everywhere. So anyway, to cut a long story short, so I was backstage and I had to wait there because I was doing links for Asia and whatever, so not really, we were, I won't say stepfatherly treatment, but we were not like the upper caste, we were somewhere in the lower middle. And so then I had first Madonna pass just a few feet away. And I tried to get close, but there were some bodyguards, and I think, brown-skinned man, vaguely badly dressed, is not encouraged. So I continued to be like a virgin around her. And then, finally, the great man passed me. Because he was the end of the show. He brought the house down.
So did you yell something like, hey?
I shouted, Paul, 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 but I couldn't get any closer. It looked a little difficult. In fact, there's a Beatles fan who just walked in and saying, what's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. Check out Abbey Road. The clues are there. Paul is very much alive. What was the rest of the questions, by the way?
Who's your favorite Beatle?
It's tough, but I think I would identify more with John than anyone else. Because in my mind, I'm a rebel. But of course, nobody believes that. When you live in Malba Hill with, 2 chauffeurs,
I would have taken him for a George person. No?
George was too individualistic in that sense. I like John. John didn't care about anything. If you ask John about his lyrics, he said they have no meanings. He wouldn't bother to explain this, that, or the other.
Okay.
His stage presence was also very
fantastic.
Good.
John was the soul of the band initially, but then Paul became the soul of the band.
How old
Ashish, you're a big Beatles fan. I didn't know that.
Not a big one, but I do listen.
Okay, it's not a competition, man. Indians get complex about everything.
Favorite Beatles album?
That's a tough one, but everything, almost everything, even Magical Mystery Tour. Depends on the mood.
Okay.
There are very few songs I don't like of the Beatles. Maybe Hey Bulldog will struggle a little bit.
Least favorite Beatles album?
Magical Mystery Tour, which is the least heralded one. Except for All You Need Is Love, which is Ashish's
That was
favorite.
from Magical Mystery Tour?
Ashish, please wear pants on our podcast in future.
I am wearing one.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see that.
Okay, cool.
Is our Beatles interrogation over?
Yeah. All right. The next one comes from Tushar Patel. He asks, Cyrus, you're a trailblazer, like Big B, Sachin and Neil Armstrong.
You can tell from my collection of money.
After receiving feedback from
Who do you
multiple...
think has more money, Neil Armstrong, Sachin or Big B?
Sachin, for sure. Yeah.
I think here's the irony. I think he walked on the moon, but they own the moon.
After receiving feedback from multiple people on your interruption habit, what actions have you taken?
Coitus interruptus would have saved India. If more men interrupted themselves, we'd have far less population. I can't change now at this age. What am I supposed to do? Besides, I've got a bit of an ADD problem. I really struggle to listen. But I've learned over the years, if you go to college in Mumbai or some other big cities in India, and they're big classes, like 100, 150 seaters, you can learn a technique where you can pretend to listen.
Yeah.
I think some of the great anchors, Arnav, Rajdeep, Barkha, they've all done it. You just pretend to listen, so the guest thinks you're listening, but you just don't have to listen.
That's like a boyfriend quality, don't you?
It is a very good boyfriend quality. You tried that, Ashish, with the ladies?
No. I'm a good listener.
You sort of focus, but you're not really focusing. You can actually have a good dream and all that.
You could.
In your mind,
usually happens on the phone call and stuff. She's going on. You're like,
Yeah, while you're thinking Man City versus Man United, who's going to play up front and all that.
Usually I'm playing games and my phone is like this and she's talking. I'm like, I have to kill that zombie. Right?
No, but I think you'll reach the higher level when you're actually thinking about the other girl.
Oh, no, I have done that.
When that happens, you really, it's like you climb the plinth, you go up a bit. Yeah.
So what's like the pinnacle?
Well, why don't you ask, do you think the interrupting bothers you more?
Sometimes, yeah. Especially when I'm listening back to the episode.
I interrupted you right now.
The trick is to keep speaking over you. A lot of people stop out of respect.
I remember reading Marlon Brando talking about his performances in the early years. I'm not trying to say I'm Marlon Brando from any angle. I'm not as good an actor, but I just don't look like him. So his whole idea where he was performing was very clear, was that people when they talk, they don't wait for each other like a college play. You just let the audience fucking figure it out sometimes. Let them, because that's
Figure what out, though?
The way we're talking now. The way we're talking now over each other. One is excitable, one is calm, one is this, one is that, one is opinion is going, one is not paying attention, one is thinking about his girlfriend. Whatever. I'm saying, so he liked that realism in the approach of a dialogue or a scene.
People are waiting for their turn to speak. Nobody wants
in
to
India,
listen.
that's how it's always like that. Now, wait. Now I will say my line. Now I will say my line. It goes on for 15 minutes like that. That's why we take so long in this country. Look at the Japanese. They talk over each other. Boom, it's over. Actually, that's not true at all. In the most respectful culture. I should research. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were saying?
I forgot what I was saying.
Who cares? Next.
No, that was my point. People wait to speak. Anyway, so the last question comes from Ayush Singh. Ayush says, Cyrus, congratulations on the ITA award. He asked 2 questions. The first one is, can you please stop the laughter track on your TV show?
I've been fighting with Kunal and I think even Ashish Shakya when he worked with us. Who he worked for? He worked for
doing that
now
one
extinct thing called what's it called? AIB. So when he was writing with us, I think being a younger guy and more hip in all this, and us being like older comedians, and I thought he's a wonderful talent, real good writer and good mind. And he had that, he immediately said, "Why are we playing this laughter track?" And I'm a big Office fan. I'm a big Ricky Gervais fan. There's some people I think whatever they do is just 100% perfect. But Kunal is a Taurian. And if you understand astrology or follow it at all, he's just an obstinate man. And he's got in his mind that the audience is stupid, and if you don't lure them with claps, like you plant someone in a theatre audience and say, now you start the clap, so they clap after you.
Right.
Well, I can't bear it, man. I just can't bear the laughter track. Because the laughter, canned laughter, if you listen to it, it's Indian canned laughter I think we've got from Bangladesh. It's like the worst performance ever. It just sounds fake.
There's also that rem shot that comes with it.
All that is from... Or you're making fun of it and hence it's there. You know what I'm saying? Then tongue-in-cheek, yes, no problem. But this is the clash between Kunal, who comes from pre-partition comedy. That's when the British were funny. and then, whatever.
But would you rather than have a live audience?
I would love a live audience.
So then my question is, you recorded like 5 in the morning. Who's going to come?
No, all that will have to change, all right? Because there's only 1 or 2 of me who will come. But fair enough. But, I would love a live audience. Changes the whole meter completely.
Exactly.
1, 2, I just think that then, because when they laugh, like when you do a show, there are moments when they're laughing at you. Or, you can play with the audience because you effed up completely. Or they think the joke is in bad taste. They go, ooh. We need all that, we don't have that. We just can't have the same sort of rhythm.
Right,
it's like one guitar playing the same 3 notes start to finish, which brings us back to the Beatles.
Okay, quickly, the second question is asked is, what's your fondest memory from MTV?
I think when they actually would start on time. So the shows that would start on time was Loveline with Malaika and Shanaz when they were on. Because Malaika was crack with her time always, and she took only 2 minutes to change. Some of the other VJs would take hours. So when they knew she was on, the technical crew, everybody would get their act together. Otherwise, I've played so much cricket at MTV. I could be in the IPL, honestly.
So playing the cricket is your fondest memory, or starting on time?
No, after some time, I like to get on with things, man. I just can't. I'm so impatient. I don't know. You may not have noticed.
So nothing from Bakra or anything? No.
Bakra was fun while shooting it. Because there's so many variables and your heart races when you're left alone in a cab or on the road. So in that sense it's like a raised performance because there's no second take chance and all that, and you can get hit physically and things. Your blood is rushing. So in that sense, it's great fun. But the setup and all, Vasant Walson, my producer, for 9 o'clock, he would come at 11 and then go for chai. And chai for Vasant Walson was 1.5 hours. Imagine what lunch was. God. That's it. I'm sorry. Ashish, you haven't said a word. Let's give him 2 minutes to talk.
Ashish, your fondest memory from MTV as a viewer?
I think he's too young. MTV was over by the time he grew up.
No, I was growing up, I was watching your show, The Bakra, and the best one was when he was selling Argentinian and Brazilian meat to people.
This is the Congress government.
Oh, God. It was the hilarious episode ever. He was selling, and when they open the freezer, there are people inside, and they're like, mere ko bacha lo. And he
shot on a Saturday where a lot of people come to buy meat in that particular area that we shot in. I remember. And so from like 8:30 to 9:30, nobody turned up, and I was getting really irritated. And from 9:30 onwards, they just poured in. It was amazing. But we had some good. Those are scary moments when a guy actually believes a corpse is inside. So he said, "Mujhe ye chahiye." You know how Indians we have a certain way with bartering. So everything, whether it's the meat quality or the price, we're always getting into it. So you need to get into that conversation. Then the guy is totally like he thinks you're cheating him. So he wants to go on and on and on. And that's when you say, okay, ye theek nahi hai. Acha, ek minute, ye dekho. And the third or fourth thing, you open the fridge and there's a guy there hanging. Human body, with a shirt on because they have to hook him.
What is an actual person?
He's just,
Did you have to get like release forms from these people who you
We
caught
have
on
gotten
camera?
away with literally murder. We got release forms sometimes, but sometimes they ran away and we couldn't catch them. And sometimes if we chase them, they panic more. Because when we think about it now, the last thing you should do is a bunch of people chasing a guy after him. Then we realized we put girls on the shoot so that, the girl could go after him. But I think that didn't help either because now he's more screwed up. First a human body, then a woman, a young, pretty woman, hep woman in jeans and t-shirt is running after him. So, and the guy's just like, what the hell's happened to my life?
I remember the one where you were playing Bhelpuri Wala and you were just sneezing into people's, while preparing it, he would just sneeze into it.
See, those ones are damn tough actually. They seem easy, but because you're really upsetting someone for no reason. The other one, I took the Sev Puri every time. So after 3 or 4, he offered it to me. But in an aggressive way,
Yeah.
Like really hurt.
Types.
What to do. The things we do for NGOs.
Exactly.
Really. MTV, I say. All right, thanks. Ashish, we'll have you back. You were great.
Thank you so
the moustache
much.
really made a difference for me. Now I'll interrupt both of you and say bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, catch us on any of the podcasting apps, please. We beg you. We need you. Send us your questions on Twitter on Cyrus Says In. Or you can email us, even if you're not female, on whatcyrussays@gmail.com.
And that's what Cyrus says.
Look! Up in the internet! It's a meme! No! It's a cat video! No! It's the Geek Fruit Podcast!
That's right. We interrupt this riveting broadcast to tell you about our show, The Geek Fruit Podcast, where Tejas, Dinkar, and I, Jishnu, talk about everything in pop culture, including DC, Marvel, Star Wars, Netflix, and everything in between.
You know how your friends hate it when you ramble about some nerdy crap and you just want somebody to listen to you? Well, sorry, there's nothing we can do about that, but come listen to us ramble and it'll almost be like the real thing. Kind of.
Listen to new episodes of the Geek Fruit Podcast every Monday and the Geek Fruit Bulletin every Thursday on iTunes, Google Podcasts, the IVM app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy listening, you nerds.
Yeah. It's IVM here. Let's go. We the IVM kids on the block over here. Just to talk, taking a break from producing all day, coming on this podcast cause we got stuff to say. IVM Daily is the name of the show. Monday to Friday, we ready to go. Talking about stuff in our head. We might even talk about our favorite bread. Signing out, it's IVM here, the podcast network that's in your ear.
Catch IVM Daily, Monday to Friday on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcasts.